at Silver VIPR right now, which again should check off all the boxes that investors are looking at from investment in a junior explorer. I will be making some forward-looking statements today. I think I just made some already before we even got to this slide, but continuing on, obviously, we will be making forward-looking statements. I think there are three things you should be looking at when you invest in a junior explorer. One, that it has a high-quality asset. Two, that it has lots of potential. And three, that it has a strong management and shareholder group behind it. In our case, we certainly have all three of those. The project's the La Virginia project in eastern Sonora in Mexico. It's a project that we took over, brought back together. It was originally Mindfinder's #1 exploration asset when they were bought by Pan American Silver for $1.5 billion. We saw that the project had lots of potential. Their work had been focused on one very small portion of the project, and that we would get involved and be able to make additional discoveries, which is exactly what we did at the El Ruby zone. As far as lots of potential, El Ruby is still just one very small portion of the project. We're going to be actually testing two targets here, quite quickly that are, again, never tested before. We're going to do a reconnaissance program on them, and that will be La Colmena and the Peridones targets up kind of northeast of El Ruby on the project. And then the other one, again, it's an ongoing theme I think you've seen across all these companies, but that you have a strong management shareholder group behind it, a management team that has a history of making success. A staple of ours, I should mention, our company sits within a group called the Belcara Management Group. So we have three public companies under our management: Oryx Minerals, Barcelli Minerals, and Silver VIPR. And a staple of all the Belcara Group companies is management owning over 20% of the company. We're very active in the market. We like to support the stocks, and we think there's no better place to invest our money than the companies that we're running. Still a very low share count here. This company was set up as a true IPO in 2017. We acquired this project in 2018, and we can, moving forward here, you'll see, again, why we were excited about the project. Just quickly, you can see our option agreement that was in place here. We acquired everything that was in red from Pan American for a 2% project-wide NSR. And then everything in blue, which was where all that historic work was done on the project, you can see we have this back-end loaded option agreement. Of note, that final $2.5 million payment, half of that can be paid in shares at our discretion. There's also, we've made that June 2021 payment as well on that slide. So again, it was a deal that was structured to allow us to put the money in the ground where it belongs and really evaluate the project before we make that one large kind of final payment. We've certainly seen enough and discovered enough on the project that we would absolutely warrant that final payment. Here you can see the project is located east of Hermosillo, towards the border between Chihuahua and Sonora, up in the Sierra Madre Mountains. Take a paved highway to the local town of Nicori Chico, and from there it's about 30 to 40 minutes in on a well-kept gravel and dirt road. You can see an image there. That's El Ruby, the plateau. And I guess just while we're looking at that image, what's very important about that is that it's on this flat plateau, and that becomes very favorable for the open pit portion of our resource that's located at El Ruby. The rest of the project, as you can see, is very hilly, quite steep terrain, very nice for underground mining and using gravity to your benefit. But El Ruby itself, and what really has made this project, is the open pit potential of that. And then moving forward, we'll be exploring and developing an underground portion to that resource at El Ruby. Here again, you can see, as we mentioned, El Ruby. One of the things that let us get into El Ruby that I guess why they never tested it, they never even bothered to sample it in the past when Mindfinders was on the project, is the use of these man-portable rigs. When they were exploring, they were using large track-mounted rigs. They were bulldozing in roads. It was fairly expensive exploration. I think in the time that they were exploring to when we took over, technology kind of came a long ways with these man-portable rigs and how powerful and how accurate they could keep drilling and the size of the core. So we've been able to, go all over anywhere on the project with these man-portable rigs. They're very environmentally friendly. You can see all that lumber that we use for the pads. We reuse that pad to pad. When we're done drilling in a spot, we can throw down some grass seed, and other than the drill collar, you can't even tell that we were ever drilling there. So very important. We're environmentally permitted to drill all over the project with Seminat in Mexico. It's a great place to work. This state that we're working in is the #1 gold producing state, and I believe #3 in silver in Mexico. Very rich history of mining in this part of Mexico. Another kind of cool image there, you can see the gold kind of through the microscope. That's been, something kind of unique for us in Mexico. You don't see a lot of visible gold in core. Silver mineralization is always, easy to see. But here at Ruby, obviously the gold has obviously always been a good sign when we get visible gold that we're going to have some pretty good assays, and we've hit some pretty spectacular ones over our time at Ruby. This image, it's missing another line. We don't know where that line will exist yet, but it's going to be very important moving forward later this year in the exploration work that we're going to be doing at El Ruby. All of our reported assays to date have been focused on the andesites. This has been our most favorable horizon for mineralization. It's where we discovered our western zone that are these 100-meter long broad zones that really made that open pit mineralization and the idea of modeling an open pit mine on this portion of the project important. But as we move forward, one of the models that we've kind of seen comparing this deposit to other deposits around the world is that oftentimes on the type of deposit that we think it is, the big win will come at the contact between that rhyolite package and the metasediment package below that. One of the big investors that took on our last placement that took a strategic investment in the company was Crescat, and Quentin Hennig was really the one influential behind that, and he compared it to his times at Newmont. They called these actually gold carbonate based metal deposits, which from what we've been drilling in right now has nothing to do with all. You would never say that there's carbonates or base metal. We have had virtually little, very few base metals, but what happens is that contact between the rhyolites and the metasediments is where you really hit these spectacular bonanza grades and widths, because the metasediment package is far more favorable again for broader widths and mineralization. So we're going to be doing a large geophysics program here. It looks like now it'll be starting at the end of October. We've just got word that the Quantec has got all their permits to import their equipment into Mexico to run about a month-long 3D IP and magnetotellurics program on the project, and that'll be looking not only at identifying the structure all the way through the rhyolites, but identifying where that contact is, how deep it is, before we put some very deep holes into this portion of the project. While we're waiting for that work to be done at that time, that's when we're going to test some of those regional targets to get the rig out of that area, so it's not messing with the geophysics program that's being done. That geophysics program will take about a month to complete, so that's when we're going to go up and do a reconnaissance program like we did when we discovered El Ruby and hit the Perdones target, hit the La Colmena target, probably move it to the southern end of Macho Libre target, which sits south of El Ruby here. Kind of the northern end of Macho is where this picture is taken from. So we have, moving forward, we're going to have discovery potential on multiple targets, which is always, a great thing for shareholders and share price. And then, if we're successful and the model holds true on that metasediments, then we could really be in. I mean, these deposits around the world are, massive multi-million ounce high-grade gold deposits. The Kellyan deposit is an example of that. There's a few in Australia that compare. There's again, there's a number of these deposits around the world, and it's always been that contact that's important. And when, like I said, when Crescat and Quentin took a look at this, he looked at a lot of our pathfinder elements that we're seeing up high here in the andesites, and it really stood out to him as being one of these types of deposits. So we've always, our drill right now has been testing the upper rhyolites, and we're seeing that we're still in mineralization. We don't get the broad blowouts that you see in the andesites, but again, a good sign that this deposit is going to keep going and going, and again that model is holding true. Again, you can see, I talk about bonanza grades at the metasediment contact, but we've already hit some pretty spectacular grades up here high in the system as well. So I guess I'm kind of looking forward to if we do hit on that deep contact, what those grades could look like if they're even better than these ones. But we've certainly hit some very nice silver grades, some very nice gold grades. We've done metallurgy. All of this material is highly recoverable. It leaches very well, which again is important for open pit heap leach mining on the open pit style of our resource. And then here you can see that resource. Some people look at that and say that that's low grade. Again, you want to compare apples to apples. And in this part of the world, the average open pit heap leach mine operates at an average grade of about a 0.5 gram gold. They oftentimes have very low silver content. So, basically right now adding another 0.5 gram of gold equivalent in silver, that is also showing that it leaches fairly well for silver at over 70% in the low grade silver. So very nice open pit start, but we also have the high grade start. And, you can see here, those few blocks are outside of our open pit. There wasn't enough tons there to start and do an open pit or an underground resource at El Ruby. But we had the guy run the numbers, and there, that was like 15 gram gold rock and over 300 gram silver rock that was sitting just below the pit there that you could scoop up with a shovel. And that's starting to give you an idea of the potential of what this thing can do at depth as we continue to move down and expand on the resource. This slide was kind of one of those slides that really showed us that we were in a different type of deposit here in Mexico. You know, it is an epithermal deposit, but it's not the traditional epithermal deposit. If this was a traditional epithermal deposit, you know, where we have these high grade gold and silver up in the zone that you can see here in pink on this hole, and then 300 meters below it, we're still in high grade gold and silver. But in neither case do we have high grade base metals. In the traditional epithermal system, 300 meters down, we should be getting out of the gold and silver and really moving more into, you know, high base metals numbers, and that's not what we have. We are in an epithermal system, but there's deeper roots. There's something very, you know, completely different happening here on the deposit. Mention that we are, you know, our work has been going, all of our work right now has been testing the rhyolite package underneath what you can see here of this section of where the open pit and you know the previous drilling at El Ruby was. We should be coming out with a assay release here in the next couple of weeks that'll summarize up a lot of that rhyolite drilling, and then I think we have a few more holes that we'll be drilling along that line, and then we're, like you said, we're going to be moving up to those exploration targets while we do the geophysics. But again, lots of room to expand from that first resource as we move to the south, to the bottom of that arroyo. That's about 300 meters there that you can see where there was no previous drilling. We had some drilling success down deep in that or shallow at that bottom part of the arroyo there. Again, we think we're in a down drop block, so those holes didn't go deep enough based on some of the drilling we've done. And I believe we're going to be going back into those holes to expand them to test that theory as well. To the north, again, we believe we're in another down drop block to El Ruby. So we're going to wait for the geophysics to identify kind of the structure there on the back end of that before we start expanding to the north. But by no means have we cut this thing off along strike. You know, we see the potential for this to run all the way up to Ruby North, which is, you know, 2 kilometers long, where we saw success in mineralization from our sampling programs as we get to the end of that arroyo. And we've actually sampled off of the arroyo, and the structure continues to run and is mineralized. Here you can see some of the targets. This doesn't have Peridonis on it, which would sit, you know, kind of south and east of La Colmena. But again, you can see where they sit relative to the first, you know, kind of magnetics program that we run on the project. What was interesting here was that large arrowhead shape, and that a lot of our, you know, initial geochem anomalies lined up on the edge of that kind of arrowhead shape, which we would interpret it as a buried intrusion, because it's nothing that you see on surface. That shape certainly doesn't exist, but probably helped create that plateau that El Ruby sits on. I already went through the metallurgy. Again, you can see here very good recoveries, especially that low-grade silver recovering at 76%. That's, you know, extremely encouraging for the open pit portion, and really, you know, taking advantage of that kind of half-gram gold equivalent silver grade that we have there. But gold recoveries across the board, 90 to 95%. Again, very, you know, good and solid for that open pit mining and underground. I mentioned the group. Our last big success that most investors would know us for was Orco Silver, located in Durango, Mexico. That was a deposit we put the very first drill hole into, grew it to 350 million ounces of silver, and sold it in a bidding war between Coeur and First Majestic. Grew it over 270 million ounces of silver and sold it in a bidding war for 350 million to Coeur Mining, ultimately winning out. That's really our model. Our model is to get involved somewhere along the exploration timeline. We will, you know, whether something's never been drilled or still has a lot of potential, like we see here at El Ruby and La Virginia. But our model, we're very good explorers. We have a very strong group of senior geologists with, you know, a great track record of success in the industry. But we're really looking for the big win for our shareholders to be that, you know, transaction where we sell it to one of the mining companies. Just quickly, you can see some of our share structure, you know, a number of the funds that own the company, but there's over 20 different funds that own the stock at the moment. We've had great institutional support. We've seen a lot of growing market with our US retail following growing. We've got official coverage from Red Cloud and Dave Talbot at the moment. Again, I mean, it's a very well-positioned company for success moving forward. And just in summary, we've got a high-quality asset. We're in a great jurisdiction, great management technical team, lots of potential, strong shareholder support, and we recently completed a placement for $6 million in June of 2021, so we're financed for exploration.